Very good morning to everybody. Thank you, Andrew, for that lovely introduction. Jono, good morning to you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good in yourself. Any good morning, and good morning to everybody that's joined us today as well.
Fantastic. So for those of you that are joining Jono and myself this morning, what we are going through on our end of financial year mini-series that we are running through this year, Jono and I are going to chat about some options with regards to data migration, moving your clients over to QuickBooks Online.
So to put it simply, guys, I mean, there's two ways to migrate data, one of them being Beanstalk, and I'll take you through that in the next few minutes. And any of you maybe just take us through after that, just the various methods of bringing over non-QB desktop clients into the fold.
Absolutely. So as Jono said, two methods. If your client is currently using QuickBooks desktop software, there are options to migrate their data directly into QBO. And for potentially where a client doesn't have a very nice set of books, even if they're on QB desktop or any other accounting software, how would you move their data across into QBO? So Jono, tell us a little bit about Beanstalk then.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just speaking to the notes, obviously using the Beanstalk method is the fastest way of doing a migration. And to your point, Henny, it's based on file integrity and how long have you been on desktop? You know, is there corruption? Have you cleaned out the files? And I'm sure we'll get to that a little bit later on in the presentation.
Sure.
But for my methods, you know, if you have a client that is using a later version of QuickBooks Desktop that kept up with their updates, even if they didn't and they had a clean set of books, the Beanstalk migration is a first port of call. Once again, it is the quickest way if it does works about 90% of the time, as I mentioned, with the right file. It is an Intuit tool and it's designed obviously for QuickBooks Desktop, so that means it lives within the product, within the older legacy product, and I'll take you through a couple of the steps that we have to get through that now. So this screen will obviously be familiar to a couple of you guys that are on this call, and to the newer guys that have started with us on QBOA, the online accountant platform. You might not be familiar with this, but if you have worked with clients that have QuickBooks Desktop, this will be the screen that you come to once you log on in. Once you log into QuickBooks Desktop, you simply go to the company screen. At the bottom there's a menu item saying export company file to QuickBooks Online. Now, Beanstalk is an internal industry term that we use, but it's just to explain the method of moving over the books from the entire desktop file directly into your QuickBooks Online account. So the next step there is, you know, we get started with the cloud and we're going to have to log into our online profile. So this predetermines that, you know, you'd have to set up your QuickBooks Online profile for your clients before wanting to move over the company data. So it would start with you creating an online profile, and from there opening up the desktop set of books and then linking the two together so that you can push that file migration. So the next step is obviously to log in and then to have a look at the file that you're looking at. So, oh, sorry, I skipped a few slides ahead, but this deals with stock. So basically, it asks you the question of if you are bringing in stock. The suggestion is, if you are, just to bring in as far back a date as you can to make sure that you're covering off everything. Selecting the dates is simple as, and then you can continue. And that's literally all there is to it. I mean, if you select the profile in the destination block, once you've done that, you'd step through. Oops, I've started a bit of Henny's thunder there. But from this point on, you're looking at a 30-minute to an hour conversion of the file itself.
Depending on file size, though.
Depending on the file size, 100%, Henny. So it's a completely automated process. It doesn't touch any agents or any sort of tickets that get created on Intuit's end. So there's no actual physical team working on this data. It is a method, and like I say, it doesn't have a 100% success rate, but it is a quick stopgap feature. If you're migrating files overnight or over the weekend and the teams aren't available, this is an option for you to turn to, and it could mean the difference between a migration that could take an hour versus something that could take 2 to 3 days, which I'm sure you'll get into.
Sometimes even 2 to 3 weeks.
depending on the type of file and if there's corruption, there might always be problems, as with any sort of human-based interaction. But with this, like I say, it's an automated process. It simply moves the data that you had in your desktop. If it is in a legible format, it'll put it into that online profile for you. And like I say, an hour's time. If you've got 100 clients, this is a quick way of doing the QuickBooks, guys. We're obviously on later versions. I'll hand back over to you now, Henny, and you can take us off through the rest of the methods.
Good stuff. So as John has said, what we refer to as beanstalk always makes me think of Jack and the Beanstalk, purely because, you know, the beanstalk starts growing on the ground and it moves its way all the way up to the cloud, and that's technically where the synonym or the word comes from that we refer to with regards to beanstalk. So, as John also mentioned, the 90% success rate that we generally have with beanstalk, what do you do if you happen to end up having a client that is one of those 10%? So that's where the alternative options come in, where we cannot necessarily migrate. Let's have a look at the options available from a conversion point of view. So what are we referring to from conversion? Effectively, you're going to take the data out of your current accounting system that your client is using, doesn't matter what it is, get it into Excel, and then technically we've got two methods of converting that data into QuickBooks Online data. Just to mention one last thing, we did speak about Beanstalk, which is obviously you doing it yourself with the automated system. There is an alternative option with the Intuit team in America. You can get in contact with them, send them all the information, and they can look at migrating the data for you if you happen to not be able to use the Beanstalk method yourself. However, that is entirely dependent on how busy they are. So, for a conversion method, let's have a look at the two options that are available. Either you're going to manually import data directly using QuickBooks Online, or your alternative option is a third-party software that I use, and it works very successfully for me, and I'll give you a little bit more info with regards to that in a couple of minutes. But that software is called SASANT, spelled S-A-S-A-N-T, and effectively it's an Excel import tool. So, I went backwards to you. There we go. If we're going to look at method A, where we are going to import data directly using QuickBooks Online, you are limited to what you can import, and effectively I've just shown you the method to navigate to your QuickBooks Online company for your client. Click on the settings gear in the top right corner and select under the tools option the import data option. The next screen that you will see is the available importing options, and as you can see, we can do your list data, such as your customers, your suppliers, the products and services that your client sells, and the chart of accounts. Over and above that, we can also import invoices and bills, but that is the end of the import capability from a QuickBooks Online perspective. Now, if you had to select any one of those except for bank data, QuickBooks will give you the option to select the file that you want to import. However, you're going to say, okay, but I've never imported before, so how do I import? And very simply, every single one of those options, there is a template file available after you've clicked on one of those options. So it'll have a pre-formatted file with all the relevant headings that are required, and you can just then go ahead and populate your client's information into the relevant data that you want to import. Cool. So as I said, it is limited. What happens if there are additional transactions that you might need to import, or maybe you need a more comprehensive conversion of data? So as an example, I've had a client that said to me, yes, I'm happy to move over, but we would like at least 1 year worth of history in the file. How do we go ahead and do that? Well, we obviously can't use the QuickBooks import method. What we would use the QuickBooks import method for would be to effectively start a new set of books where we only have opening balances, where on the journal screen, if you go to a general journal, there is an import option, and very simply, as your journal looks on screen is how your Excel file needs to look. And what you would do with your opening balances is effectively is pull in a trial balance, because a trial balance is a journal from an accounting perspective, or at least from a QBO perspective. However, right at the end, I'm going to give you some information with regards to your trial balance, because if you're posting a balance to accounts receivable, you need a name. You need that customer's name. If you're posting an amount in a journal to accounts payable, the same thing applies. You would need the supplier's name. So right at the end, I'll give you a tip with regards to how we manage importing data where, for example, a trial balance is not yet ready. Because if we're going to be doing something like a conversion and the client wants to start working at the beginning of the financial year, there is a possibility that their trial balance won't yet be ready because they haven't finished their accounts for the financial year. So how do we deal with that? I will give you a tip right at the end, because we're going to give you 3 talking points to walk away with after the short little session that we are giving you. Cool. So that is the QBO import options. Your next option, if you need a more comprehensive import or you just want better control, and I'll explain the control because in a minute I'm going to show you the template that is available for the SAS program. Now, as I mentioned, it is a third-party software, which means you will have to pay for it. There's no subscription that you can buy that enables you to have access to the program and to use it as and when you need for relevant clients. So the way that I use the SAS Import Tool, which is also a deleting tool, is technically I would log into QuickBooks online and I would navigate to my client's QuickBooks file. At that point, I would then log into the SAS side of things, and what you'll notice is that I can sign in with my Intuit profile. So because I've already logged into QuickBooks, it will then access my login that I've used for QuickBooks, and it will log me in technically to my QuickBooks through SAS. Now, because I'm a QBOA, I then have my practice. It will give me my practice. I drop down, select Ray and Associates, and then I can choose which client I'm physically looking to import data for. I click on the drop down and I select the relevant client. Cool. So I've just put some info on the screen here with regards to SAS. The subscription that I always use is $9.99 a month. That is US dollars. So you're looking at about $150 based on current exchange rates. So what I tend to do is I will run that subscription for approximately a month, just in case there's anything else that needs to be imported, whatever the case might be is. And out of, I suppose, just good habit from my side, I'll put a reminder a couple of days before the subscription will auto-renew, because it won't stop renewing until you cancel the subscription. Because, you know, in 3 weeks' time, the migration should be complete, clients should be working, everything should be as we would like it to be. So I have noted the web address for SAS for you. I'll leave it on the screen for a second or two so that you can maybe just take note of it. Otherwise, what you could do is Google QuickBooks Online App Store and type in SAS into the App Store. You'll also find a link to get into SAS. Right. Now, what I've done effectively here is I've given you a screenshot of what you can import using SAS. And as you can see, we've got our customer-related transactions. And as you can see, I can do more than just invoices relating to customers. From your supplier side of things, now keep in mind the back end of QuickBooks, even though it's made for South Africa and it says customers and suppliers, the back end of the system will always refer to vendors, which are your suppliers in American terms. And as you can see, I've got a lot more transactions that I can physically import. We can do journal entries, bank deposits, bank transfers. You can import your bank statement and all of your list related data. So it's a very comprehensive tool from an importing perspective. And on the left-hand side, what you can see as well is that I can delete and I can export. So effectively, it also has a live real-time scanner that you can select the entity. What I'm referring to is, for example, let's say you imported invoices, something was wrong, the due dates were incorrect, whatever the case might be. You can then bulk scan what is currently in your QuickBooks file, and you can then go ahead and delete as well. So it's a great tool for $10, in my opinion. And I do use it pretty much all the time. So just to finalize on the capabilities of SAS, there's a global template that is available. And as you can see in my template, I've got all the relevant headings that I need already in Excel. And right at the bottom, you've got all the available fields that you need to import. Now, the best thing for me about SAS is 2 things compared to QuickBooks. Number one, QuickBooks Online importing functionality is limited to 1,000 lines. That means I would have to have a file with a header record and 999 lines underneath that. The nice thing with SAS is your limitation is 3,000. So at least if you are doing like a really big customer list, or, you know, I've done invoices before for a client where we had in the region of 18,500 invoices that we had to re-import on a new file because the previous bookkeeper just absolutely broke everything. You know, luckily I only had 6 import files that I had to do for 18,000, whereas with QuickBooks, I'd have 18. So a very time-consuming process, but at least you know the capabilities with regards to the import functionality. But the best thing for me is that you can import one Excel workbook with multiple sheets. So SAS Import will actually read that sheet and give you the breakdown of all the titles that you have on each sheet. So as an example, this template, if I had to populate everything in this template, I can import them on one Excel sheet. And very simply, when you complete one import, right at the end, it says, what would you like to do now? You click on next, and it takes you back to your sheet, and you say continue with sheet number 2, which in my example that you can see on screen would be my supplier list. So it is relatively simple. Yes, there might be a little bit of a learning curve, but the greatest thing for me is that the learning curve is built into this program. So if you import and something is incorrect, very simply, it's going to give you a success and an error record. And what you can do is export that error record, fix it, and then re-import on a new Excel sheet. Or you can undo and delete everything that you've already imported and then go and fix. So sure, maybe there's a bit of a learning curve, but it is good to know that this tool exists and the functionality that exists within it. For 150 Rand, in my opinion, it's money well spent. So
from my end, just to add to that, I know you're saying there's import limitations, you know, in certain instances when you're bringing the data in, but you know, just to mention as well, to highlight that, you know, Intuit has obviously unlimited lists on the QBO online program. It's just when you obviously bring in that you're limited to certain amounts of lines.
It's just the import number at a time.
100%. Yeah. Cool.
Good point. So what we would like to, Jono and I would like to finish off with is just giving you 3 PowerPoints with regards to all of the data that we've spoken about today, or at least the migration process. So I think, Jono.
So look, Kenny, what stood out for me, what is the biggest point, you know, when we were having these discussions, when we were prepping for this session and trying to pack as much value and content into it as we can, is if I could have the biggest takeaway for me would be to go back and have a look at your client lists and really deep dive into what the capabilities or what the needs of these specific clients that you have, and separate out those that are ready to migrate. When we say, you know, it's time to migrate your practice to the cloud, we don't mean everybody all at once. We do these things in a systematic approach, and you can speak to your business development manager through EasyBiz to assist you with mapping out that process, and also with you know, the tools at hand, making sure that your timelines are correct. And you know, it all comes back down to communication on timelines with your clients and setting a project with goals. So from my side, my biggest point would be to go back, have a look at your client list, separate out those that could really benefit from moving over to online today, next week, and those that might take a little bit longer. Sure. We can then plan for those guys and correct timelines. Obviously, there's bigger entities and smaller entities, but I think for now, let's take a long hard look, see what bulk offers are available through EasyBiz, through Intuit. You know, get some placeholders available, and let's start making that change. I'll hand over to you for the other 2 points there.
Perfect. I've actually already bought a couple of placeholders for this year because we've got quite a few that we're busy with migrations for. So, agreed. The next step after you've assessed who is ready for migration, your big question is, what type of migration are we able to do with these clients? Are we looking at potentially the Beanstalk route, or using the Intuit team to migrate my data? Is their current set of data in a good, what's the word I'm looking for, Jono? It's in good nick. Let's use that. Yes. So it's in good nick, it looks good, you happy with the way that the figures are looking? Great, let's do a migration. Quick and easy. You can have all the data from your side as a business consultant to your client. You know, your job is fairly simple. All you need to do is convince them and then set your timelines into play. And if we're looking at the alternative option of, well, a migration is not possible, we're going to have to do conversions, great, specify your timelines specifically, because if it's something new to you, you're going to need a little bit of school fees to get into the rhythm of, great, I know how to migrate data, but In this case, it's not possible. So are we doing a QBO import, or are we going to look at something like SASAT? Then the final thing I'd like to say, which for me was a very nice thing to learn, it took a while to figure it out, but reality says, great, I'm going to move my client's data across. They want to start working on the 1st or 2nd of March. Great. Is their previous financial year finalized? Have they finished all their reconciliations? Do we need financials and statements done for this client? Do they need to be audited? If there's potentially a yes to any of those last two questions, that means that we don't have a finalized set of books on the 1st of March. How do we deal with it? Well, very simply, just because you don't have a final TB that's been audited or finalized, it doesn't mean you can't migrate your client onto QBO. Sorry, I'll renege on my word, not renege, I'll remove my word migrate, we will convert. So how do we convert if we don't have a trial balance? Well, the answer very simply is you're going to set up 3 suspense accounts, and generally I set them up as what they are. The first will be a customer opening balance asset account. The second is a supplier liability account. And the third is bank. Because those are the only 3 pieces of information I need to have opening balances for in order to start processing on that system. A trial balance can be imported at any stage. It can be next month, it can be the month after, it can be 6 months down the line, or as a very simple example, I had a client who in November of 2021, we posted her trial balance for audited financials for 2019 February. And that's technically 2.5 years later. So it can be done at any given point in time. All you need are your customer opening balances, supplier opening balances, and your bank opening balance. You post those in a journal to control accounts, or let's call them suspense accounts. And when you post your trial balance that has been audited or finalized or whatever the case might be, instead of posting your bank, your supplier opening balances, and your customer opening balances to accounts receivable and accounts payable, you're going to post them to 0 those opening balance accounts. I hope that made sense. And I hope that everything John and I have shown you guys today will be of some value to you with regards to data migration to QBO. Jono? Thanks
guys. Yeah.
Your info on Beanstalk, and I hope you've even learned something from me with regards to data migrations.
I really did, Henny. It's always nice to see what happens on the other side of the curtain. Having said that, though, guys, if you're having any difficulties or troubles, or you just want some advice on moving clients over, reach out to your business development manager. We're always here to help and give us advice. And yeah, thanks again for joining us today, and I wish you guys well for the rest of the series.
Good luck. Enjoy the rest of the day. Handing back over to Andrew. Thanks a lot for the introductions this morning, Andrew, and good luck with the rest of the sessions today.
Have a lovely weekend, everyone. Keep well.
Go well.
Thanks, Jono and Henny, for your presentation today. Data migration is really important when moving clients to a new solution. So thanks for taking us through the options on how to approach a migration based on the type of file and also the quality of the data. In terms of actionable insights I took away, the first one was Jono mentioned the idea of creating a plan on which clients to migrate. Review your client list and define who is ready to move. And if you need assistance, don't hesitate to contact the team at EasyBiz to help you sort of navigate that. The second one was how to assess what type of migration is applicable to your client's file. How good is the data? And that's really important. That will sort of influence what type of migration you'll actually undertake. And then set the expectations with the client in terms of timing. Henny then also brought up the common issue of having a client's set of accounts that haven't been finalized and how to approach this by setting up 3 suspense accounts. Those being the customer opening balance asset account, a supplier liability account, and a bank account, which is a great approach when you're still waiting for a trial balance. I'm sure everyone got something out of the session today and something that they can implement this year end. Okay, the code words for today is time is. Just repeating it, the code words are time is. So make sure you write it down in your workbook so that you can complete the sentence. and be in the running for the MacBook Air. We look forward to seeing you again for day 5, when we'll hear from a panel discussing the issue of moving clients to the cloud and how to frame that conversation. So until then, have a great day. Thank you.